Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is William Steele, True Crime King. This is my inaugural podcast on my true crime channels all across the board and going out on every podcast channel imaginable. It's going to be known as William Steele True Crime, or you can find it under True Crime King or Official William Steele. Now, for my inaugural podcast, I have retired Special Agent Ignacio Esteban. He's retired from the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, and since his retirement, in about a year, he's written approximately 50 books, which you can find on Amazon. Please check out his books on Amazon. So, as a special agent in the Miami and Tampa field divisions, he worked undercover investigating violent street gangs, international firearms traffickers, violent repeat offenders, and other types of federal investigations. Prior to his joining ATF in 2000, he was employed with the United States Customs Service at the Miami International Airport, and he was a member of the elite contraband enforcement team, responsible in seizing large amounts of cocaine and heroin entering the United States from Latin America. His background, incredibly, was originally in political science, which he holds an intense interest in still, as well as history, and he has a Bachelor of Arts from St. Leo University. He also studied international relations at Florida International University in Miami. In his retirement, he's become a prolific writer. This man's an American hero, a living legend in law enforcement. We have nothing but respect for law enforcement, federal and state. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce retired Special Agent of the ATF, Ignacio Esteban. Ready?
All right, man.
All right. So with that introduction, welcome to the show, Ignacio.
Hey, William, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoy being on these shows.
No problem. This, as you know, is my inaugural show, my podcast, my true crime channel.
Congratulations.
Steele. Yeah, it's a pleasure getting to know you, and hopefully as this progresses, I get to call you friend. You know, I appreciate your pointers and tips on things. And
congratulations on that success you're having at A&E with that new reality TV show.
I appreciate it. I just it's exploding in the Nielsen ratings, and it's really a very humbling experience. I have plenty of fans out there that love me, and it's after feeling hated and marginalized in prison, and you don't have a voice, to have all of a sudden tens of thousands of people contacting me. And this is all happening in the last few weeks, so it's all new to me. And I do believe in God. I have a strong faith, and I just believe that me trying to do the right thing everything's going to fall in place.
That's like a book written by Dershowitz years ago, Reversal of Fortune, right?
Who wrote it?
Dershowitz, famous attorney.
Alan Dershowitz. Yeah.
Reversal of Fortune, right? A little different contents, but it's still, wow. You went from there to doing this. Fantastic, man. Congratulations.
I sure appreciate it. Okay, so, let's get into this, and I just so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, man.
With my background, having spent so much time in prison, a prison escape, being a professional jewel thief, I never thought, 20 years ago, I'd be interviewing a former law enforcement officer, especially of your caliber. And I say for the record, I've had some law enforcement that I know very well. I have nothing but respect for you guys, especially ATF. My God, you deal with the most dangerous of situations. For my audience, these guys deal with really dangerous people, prior violent felons that are out there doing robberies, murder for hire, arms trafficking, gun trafficking, international arms trafficking. They work with many other agencies, and so we really, really have a special guest here. And so give me a little more background about you that maybe I didn't say in the beginning, and what's important to you, because I know what's important to me going forward in my new life is to help people through my bad experiences and my poor choices. And in the front of all my books, I write a quote from Edmund Burke, and that is, all that's needed for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And in my heart, I always felt I was that good man. I just went bad, and I really want to make up for it now. And I think you're that good man too. So
I try to be. I was fortunate enough with my parents; they raised me, and I was able to stay the course. And I always wanted to be able to look myself in the mirror when I did things. And I always, I don't know, with law enforcement, they gave me that satisfaction of doing good things, making the community safer. And I retired from ATF last year. I mean, I was 26 years of federal law enforcement. I had 21 with ATF, 5 with U.S. Customs. And the book I had And the book I have, you can probably see the poster, is called ATF Undercover. But maybe I should have called it The Accidental Agent, because I had really was looking to go a different career path completely back in the mid-90s, right? I had a degree in political science and history from St. Louis University up in Tampa, Florida, right near Tampa, Florida, in Pasco County, actually. And I was studying international relations of my master's degree at FIU, Florida International University. And I was going to go to law school. But you know what? I said, no, law school's expensive. And at the time, we're talking about 95. You're looking about, $30,000, $40,000 a year, right? And then you have a scholarship. It's going to be loans and everything else. And plus, on top of that, I was going to have to go to, it was going to be in Michigan. I was going to go to Lansing, Michigan. So I ended up putting for some jobs, federal jobs in law enforcement, because they needed customs, needed Spanish speakers and people with a background in international relations. 90% of the flights coming in were from Latin America. So it was nice to be able to speak to the people and get the drugs and contraband coming into the country, right? So I said, you know what? Let me give it a go. I'm very fit. I was also very athletic. I had a scholarship in college. I played tennis and cross country, right? So I was a very fit guy, and I love all sports. So I knew I was always good at shooting. So I knew this would maybe be a good fit. I put in for it, and I got the job, right?
I saw we wrote a book about Wimbledon. You always wanted to be a Wimbledon champion. So you wrote a novel, and you
That's right, man. That's right. I was also a teaching pro for a while when I was in college too, which was nice. I made a lot of good money. Yeah, if those who follow tennis, I had about a 5.0 rating, so I was pretty high up there with the tennis. So I would have loved to have done that. Obviously, you know how much you make when you win a big championship like that. That would have been nice. So I got picked up with customs. And I really enjoy the work. I mean, it was amazing at the time. I ended up going to one of the elite teams, the contraband enforcement team. And at the time at Miami International Airport, we're making some of the biggest seizures in the country, right? And this is when the Cali cartel, the Medellin cartel were still going strong.
Is
right?
that the days of the collapse? Is that the days of the cocaine and the bananas and the wood? And
I'm going to tell you some quick crazy stories here. And this is the 80s was crazy. 90s was still pretty crazy too.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not as crazy as the 80s, but it was still pretty crazy. It wasn't uncommon for us to get a seizure of like 850 pounds of cocaine that were coming in. And let's say in the tuna or the grouper, the big fish coming in, let's say from Guayaquil, Ecuador, which we had. So there'll be a brick of ice next to a brick of a kilo right next to inside. And this stuff was never going to be delivered. This shows the level of corruption that was going on in the airport. All the shipments were going to get ripped off, right? So that's a pretty big hit. We would get that. Sometimes in the flower stems, they would stuff them inside the cocaine in the stems. Very hard to detect. X-rays would be hard to find it. The dogs wouldn't be able to hit on it sometimes. And those are some of the ways they were going. I've talked in some other shows and other times, people who will swallow these pellets. You know how dangerous that is.
In prison, they do that still. They'll swallow them or do it the other way, and they break
stuffers.
Yep, they OD all the time because it unravels or not.
Oh my gosh, it was not uncommon to get a phone call that we have another a DOA dead on arrival, right? Especially with the heroin. The heroin starts unraveling in there. It's over. It's so strong, it's so pure coming in there, and we would catch a lot of these guys, but we wouldn't catch them all. The ones that we caught were lucky because if the cartel gets a hold of you, and it's not easy to pass this. You go to one of these hotels, they give you the stuff, you can't pass it. You think these guys are going to wait 3 or 4 days?
No.
Go in these hotels? No, they're going to put a bullet in your head and then cut you, and that's it, and take their product, and they don't care.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember these days in Miami, there was, big $100 million or tens of millions of dollars of cash found in different homes in that period, the 80s and 90s. I don't know if people around. It's probably a little before your time. Nick Navarro, remember him?
Yes, I do remember him.
Okay, well, my
Broward County Sheriff's Office, right?
Yes, and we didn't share this, as we got to know each other, Ignacio, but I actually hit his house. I'm the guy who burglarized Navarro's house.
No way.
Yes, and so I got caught, years later, and they just wanted me to do a polygraph at a sketch of the inside, and I said, I'm not going to get charged. I said no, but I can't tell you because he was never convicted of, and he's passed away. But there was something found in there, right? So and there was jewelry, and I remember there was a card from President Reagan in his jewelry box, and it said it was a presidential seal, and said, "Dear something like Sheriff Nick Navarro," I paraphrase, "thank you for your assistance on the South Florida Drug Task Force."
Mm-hmm.
sincerely, President Ronald Reagan. I was like, and I
cool.
saw that. I took his gun. It was a 5-shot detective special, which, and I just freaked when I realized I saw his ID, and I said, holy crap, this is the guy that started the Cops TV show, filming around Broward County, and the Cops is huge even today. And I just lost it. I just packed up my bags. I was living with a bunch of girls. Yeah, I was living with a bunch of girls from Ireland. I said, we got to go. Where are we going? Let's go to L.A. I was in L.A. the next day. And I just came to South Florida, cool down for a while.
He was a very popular sheriff in Broward County.
Yes, he was.
Very, very aggressive. And if I remember correctly, he also wanted to be harder on these inmates. And didn't he have them wearing some sort of different kind of uniforms? And he also had in tent cities sometimes to make it harder conditions, working conditions.
I don't remember that. I wasn't in jail in Fort Lauderdale during that period. Okay. But I was in there later in the 90s and 2000. But, he was pretty tough. But there was allegations of other things, of course, like there always is. But so, it was funny because years later now, one of my best friends was the vice president of NBC, Tom Madden from Transmedia Group in Boca.
Right.
And he has a PR firm now. And when he started working with me on my books and my projects getting out of prison, he said, I started telling him some of my stories. And when he heard about Navarro, he goes, you got to be freaking kidding me. You're the guy? He said, I wrote Nick's book.
No.
We didn't even realize he actually wrote The Cuban Cop. Nick Navarro with Tom Madden. But anyway.
It's a small world, no doubt, Will.
Yeah, and I don't say these things to glorify my past. They're just interesting stories to tell now. And really, I just want to help people. On my station, Official William Steele, I have The Misadventures of a Super Thief, how things can go wrong. And I'm going to expand on those 5-minute clips where I almost got killed or almost hurt somebody or could have got maybe a life sentence, because I was bringing guns and coke and kilos to New York. And, we were making years ago, as you know, the MAC-10s are pretty easy to convert.
Sure.
Not to get into it on the show because I don't want to teach anybody, but we do the conversions, make silencers, ship them up to New York.
Domestic trafficking is huge. For sure. From Florida up there, we used to a lot of cases that way too. And of course, the other way too, the cartels love that stuff too. That's so it goes north or south from Florida. Florida, I always said, with a state, based on my background, because I'll give a little bit my background how I got into ATF, but real quick about this, we'll go backtrack a little bit. Yep. Florida's a state, as a source state. I worked most of my street in Florida cases. They supply themselves, they supply the North, and they supply Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, you name it, it goes everywhere else. That's how prolific weapons are in Florida and where they go. It's like Texas, but I think Florida's even more because, of course, unfortunately, you got the gun shows, you got the flea markets, you got the internet. There's so many loopholes to get the gun, which makes Florida very popular. And, of course, these blue states and other countries which ban guns just make it more valuable. Because the black market will always be there. We can talk more about stuff like that also.
I was a criminal and a prisoner, and I used to run guns. And I do know the last thing when I was doing my burglaries that I wanted to come across was an armed homeowner or a sleeping police officer who works the night shift. That's your biggest fear. It's on your mind if you're in your right mind. And so I know you do have some solutions for these mass shootings, and I think we're on the same page with some of your solutions. I haven't heard them fully through yet, but as you tell me some more of your story, I'd love to hear what your solutions are for some of this.
Yeah, I will. I'll get there real quick. So, how do I get to ATF? So you network a lot, right? When you're in customs, we make a lot of big seizures, and I would meet a lot of people from either the FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, Secret Service, you name it. I will meet with these guys, and of course on the border, we don't need probable cause, right? Everybody's subject to search on the border. You coming in, we'll take a look at it. Same with the cargo, everything. But if you're an agent, it's a different kind of work. You have to develop probable cause. You have to take it to a different level, and you make more complex investigations. I kind of wanted to do that. So I started putting in, unfortunately at the time, Customs didn't want to hire us customs officials, right, to be agents because they didn't want to drain the border. They need us to keep us there, right? So I would love to just stay with Customs, be an agent, but that didn't happen. So I started putting in for ATF and DEA and other ones, but ATF was the fastest. The good thing for me, I was lucky enough when I got picked up and being a Spanish speaker, I stayed in Florida. It could have been bad. I could have been sent to the southwest border. That's rough. They could send you up to a big major city, very expensive. Alaska, Montana, you don't know. I ended up going to Tampa, which worked out good because I had study up in Tampa. So that was a good thing for me. So from Tampa, I was able to develop. I was in a group where there were a lot of undercovers, right? And I was able to develop and look and study and have mentors to teach me how to work undercover. Because undercover, you can't just walk into it, right, William? If you do that, you're going to get yourself hurt. You're going to make big mistakes. You have to study. It's like anything else. You first have to learn how to walk before you can run, right? So you study a lot. You watch them. You start with smaller cases. And I developed my own. Obviously, I don't sound like this. I've said it before. I had a different look. I think you probably show some of your audience and viewers how I used to look, right? Bigger beard. I had long hair, right? I spoke with an accent. My English was broken. I didn't want people to think I've been in the country more than 10 years from Cuba or something, right? If they sound you're it's like, what's going on here? The last thing I want them to think is I'm an educated guy who knows what's going on, right? Exactly. You want to know you're doing your hustle. This is what you're doing, and this is how you make your money, right? So I did that, and I got good at it. I got really good at it, and I would deal a lot with, like you mentioned earlier, with repeat violent offenders. I would buy a lot of gun repeat violent offenders, armed drug traffickers, international firearm traffickers, domestic firearm traffickers, armed home invaders. I did some of those home invasion cases also. So you get a nice variety, and you are dealing with the worst of the worst, right? That's something that was really satisfying as an ATF agent, is taking these guys off the street who are really committing some of the most violent crimes, where unfortunately they wouldn't get a lot of time in the state system. They don't. They maybe get a few years, which is tragic, and then or worse, they get probation. And we would get guys with gun charges get 15 years. With guys who commit murders would even get 10 years. It's insane how the disparity with the state system, federal system can be sometimes.
You know what I noticed even starting a few years ago before I got released from prison was that even in a place like Chicago, all these shootings and murders, you have these federal task force come in.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're allowed to name them on the air, but so they come in, these specialized task forces that would go after these guys and maybe do some stings. And they weren't getting support with the Democrats. They didn't want them around. They didn't want them doing it. And there was a lot of problems. And if I remember correctly, there was an agent and a detective shot. There was another surveillance van in Miami shot up, because they're not getting necessarily the support that they need. I was really saying, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, well, why would you want your neighborhood like this? Just try to help law enforcement to deal with this. I'm not saying that these guys at one stage can't also change, because I've changed. I wasn't violent, at nonviolent charge, but at one stage, they have to get taken off the street because they're going to kill people. And there's drive-by. There's innocent children dying in drive-bys and all this. So something has to be done about it. What are you going to do?
You have to go after the trigger pullers, right? The repeat violent offenders that do not want to be rehabilitated, do not want to change. You probably know it better than I do. These are the same guys who say, I can't wait to get out to do another lick, right?
Exactly.
And they talk about it. They want to do it.
Another big one, they would say, I want to hold court in the street next time, blah, blah, blah. In other words, shoot it out with the police.
Yeah, they're crazy.
And so I have an idea for a program too, but we'll get to that also. That might help with some of that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep.
So, so that's why I went with ATF. And I did Tampa Field Division. Like I said, I worked there for about 12 years.
Right.
And then from then I transferred to Miami. And then I worked in Miami about 7 years out there. And then I said, okay, almost 20 years, I decided to promote. And remember, all these years, an ATF is a lot smaller outfit, so the audience knows, than let's say FBI or DEA, right? We have maybe 2,600 agents, right? So the FBI and DEA have 4 times of that, 5 times. Right. So as an agent, I have to do more. I was the undercover. I was a case agent. I dealt with my own property. I dealt with my own workups. So I would do the undercover deal, right? And then put the hat on of being the case agent. So now I'm figuring out, so I have to do the logistics. I have to do the operations. I have to say, okay, I'm going to do pen registers. Or am I going to do a search warrant? Am I doing the arrest warrant? So I end up doing a lot of reports, not just my undercover deal, but affidavits to do more. So it made you even more. I became very good at multitasking. Say that at least. And that's why I became a very good writer, because I would write a lot.
You're definitely prolific. I've saw all your titles on Amazon.
And I enjoy it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm almost now in less than a year. I started writing in October last year, and I'm almost at 50 books right now. My 50th book is going to be how I wrote 50 books and published them in 1 year on Amazon.
I wrote 2. I'm trying 2 more coming out, but you're
awesome. That's good. I think your books, but altogether they're short reads, so your audience knows. but they're very detailed and well researched in a variety of topics. So if you're not into organized crime, I also got my longest book is my autobiography, ATF Undercover, and it's not just about buying dope and guns, it's about cases. It's about my life. It's about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ATF. It's also about some of the waste, fraud, and abuse, things that happen in the agency. And on top of that, it's also about solutions to, and we can talk about this now, a reference to violent crime, mass shootings, and firearms trafficking, and some solutions that can help tighten things up so it's not as crazy as we're seeing it. If you want to talk about mass shootings, I think that's a good place to start that too.
Absolutely. And I know we agreed that you're going to be coming on again also, so we can get a little deeper on some of the stuff. I did want to give my audience a feel for who you are. And because of the platform I have with my TV show, I mean, I give shout out to A&E. To me, and I'm biased, the most phenomenal network on the planet, because here I am straight out of prison and I have a hit show. It's really a blessing. But it's an opportunity for me to use my platform to try to help people. And if I could have you on to really open the eyes of the public about what goes on with these federal agencies and the challenges of law enforcement, I'd love to get you on again. We'll expand on a lot of that. But let's get to solutions. And then there's a case that I'm really curious about that's in the news constantly.
Oh, yeah.
The Merchant of Death. So we know who he is.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Victor Bout, for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, and absolutely.
So let's hear solutions. Let's go on that first.
Okay, sounds good. And I wrote a book about some of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history and how we can stop them from happening again. And I was inspired to write that book. And that's probably my second or third longest after what happened in Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, which I don't know if your audience knows. That's the recent one here, which is completely heartbreaking, where Ramos had a assault rifle and goes in there and pretty much massacres 19 kids, 2 teachers, shoots another teacher that lives, and law enforcement, unfortunately, takes 77 minutes to enter the classroom. And it wasn't even the locals that went in. It was the BORTAC team, the feds, that come in and kill this guy inside. But unconscionable. These are mistakes that should not have happened.
Not only did it take 70-something minutes, they just stood down.
They did.
After they had just been through active shooter training before the incident.
And one thing, I've taken active shooter training, and one thing you're trained in is you and somebody else, once a shooter starts, these kids are unarmed, or whoever, the public, right? They're bleeding out. They need your help. At least you have some weapons. You have to address this guy and do something, because those kids had nothing, right? Those teachers had nothing, and they died like that tragically. If you have, the audience should look at this if they can. The one teacher that survived, because there were 3, one survived. He had 3 bullets. He did an interview a few days after the shooting, and he said he laid there because he couldn't move because he had 3 rounds in him, watching his students get executed, right? And it was horrific. And he could hear the police officer outside, and they did nothing. And he said he blames them. He said that was a complete injustice. If you have a chance to see that, or watch the video, 70 minutes, that will anger you too. What
becomes of the officers that did nothing? I mean,
the chief got fired. The chief there of the school district got fired because of the in my opinion, for a poor decision, obviously, that was made. I mean, once he starts shooting, they have weapons, and it looks like the video, they end up getting some long guns. They had some. So it wasn't like, I mean, I understand you have handguns and he has a rifle. It's not a fair fight, but guess what? Those kids have nothing.
Even if you lay down some suppressing fire, maybe he stops for a minute until you get a chance to get
but they had it. I saw the video. They had long guns. Even if you just have a shotgun, use the shotgun, start blasting in there and go in there.
That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, it was a tragic mistake. So
if the shooter's trying to cower for his life because he hears that, that's less kids he's shooting until they get to him.
Yeah, and how about the kids that bled to death, right?
Unbelievable.
They needed medical treatment. Once they're shot, they still could have saved some kids. You know what's really heartbreaking too, William? If you watch the video of the parents outside who want to go in, they know their kids are in this classroom. They know shots are being fired. They know maybe their kids are being killed. They want to go in there. And the perimeter police outside is stopping them because they brought their own shotguns. They're ready to go in themselves and save their children, while the police were not going to do it. And they're being tased. They're being handcuffed. They're being pepper sprayed. And you got to watch that video. And that's also very heartbreaking. I'm law enforcement, retired law enforcement. and it pains me. But a lot of people say that was not the way you do things.
That's right.
That was a mistake.
Definitely a black eye. It was horrible.
Horrible thing to see that, and that's eye opening. So what are some? We don't want to see this again, right? We've seen it too many times. Sandy Hook. We've seen it in Parkland. We've seen it in Virginia Tech. It just continues vicious cycle that repeats itself over and over. Now I'm very, as you know, ATF agents are very pro Second Amendment. Most of us that I know. I mean, it's our constitutional right. We need to protect ourselves, protect our families, right? Because if not, you can't expect the police to come and save you. It's not going to happen sometimes. And if they are, they're going to be very late, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And you know, anybody with a weapon can do a lot of damage in 15, 20 minutes. Exactly. That's not going to work. So what are some solutions? Remember after 9/11, this came up with the pilots, right? They were able to arm themselves in the cockpit after they took the training. Those were either prior military or wanted to take the training. So in case someone did storm the cockpit, they had a weapon to protect themselves. They increased the air marshal program, and as a federal agent trained, it was a force multiplier. Agents were also armed in the planes to help out the pilot. We would say, "Hey, listen, I'm in so and so seat, and we knew we would help out if the signal was given." Right? It's a force multiplier.
You know what? In my opinion, they approved that because that plane can be flown into the politicians who don't want to die.
Yeah, but it could be used against the White House. Yeah, it could have been. That's what they said. It was going to go to the Capitol building, right?
So to protect the kids, they're refusing to allow the teachers or everybody to be armed. It's just ridiculous.
So I think they have to take the same approach.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of teachers who have either reservists, prior military, prior law enforcement, or gun enthusiasts, right? Or people that want to learn. And because you need to have access to those guns immediately, because if you're going to wait for the police and they might take 10, 15 minutes, and you have an active shooter in your classroom, it's going to be lights out. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's part of it. I think fortifying our schools better is important. More resource officers, maybe on the school, because that school had no resource officers, really. Think about. And a lot of schools don't have the means. Well, I know there was a bill that was just passed in Congress. The president signed it. But, you know, the devil's in the detail, right? How much resource is every school going to get the resource officers they need? I think the bigger schools obviously need to have better intelligence, monitoring the social media, because all these guys want to talk about this before they do it. You notice that with some of these students, they go on social media and they boast about it, they talk about it, and they start putting some really bad things.
In Parkland, wasn't there a tip that was ignored by the FBI that he was dreaming of being an active shooter?
Nicholas Cruz. Yeah, no, he put a lot of stuff out there.
That's right.
And it fell through the cracks. And the FBI just settled for a large amount to the victims for not moving on that. So lessons learned, and it happened in also in Colorado, Columbine. It's a trend where a lot of these guys and Ramos, before he did it, also was posting stuff on Facebook, but he moved a lot faster.
I've got a question for you. When somebody uses the internet or the phone to call a federal agency to provide a tip, it's my understanding. I was a law clerk in prison. I've studied a lot of this. That they would have to triage the tips as they come in for importance as a scoring system of some sort. So how come this guy making these on social media?
It should have been
cracks of the triage system.
It must have been a serious mistake for the FBI and Department of Justice to settle the amount. Is I write in my book the figure, and it's pretty large.
Right. Wow.
No doubt about that. So mistakes unfortunately made. It costs lives. Some people think, oh, you know what the solution is? You know, ban all assault rifles. No, because that's not going to do it, because the black market. So you can't do the pre-bans. So they're going to be out there, and there's going to be workarounds with the law, with the assault rifle ban. So and I saw that in the 90s, what a disaster that was with the Clinton administration with the assault weapons ban, right? So people said, okay, you take the pistol grip off, and then you put a thumb grip. You don't have a collapsible stock. Well, there you go. It's not an assault rifle anymore, but you got the same weapon. It's still the same everything else. So there's so many workarounds. You write the law, and there's a workaround for everything. So it doesn't work, and the black market will thrive. So that's not the solution.
No.
I have a friend that's retired military, and he went to Israel, and he was telling me some story, because they deal a lot with the Palestinians, they deal a lot with Hezbollah, a lot of these groups, and they live in constant terror. You have to have fortification of your schools, right? And maybe we're in a place where we have a mental health crisis, And a lot of these people are not getting the treatment they need, right?
There's also compulsory military service in Israel where people are trained to use weapons over there as well.
Yeah, yeah, and they fortify. They're wanting people coming in and out of businesses, schools. I mean, remember the airport? I don't know about you, but maybe in the 70s, remember walking all the way when I'm little to the gate, right?
Right.
But once there started more skyjackings and everything else, and after 9/11, TSA took over, and then it's an absolute nightmare for security now, right?
Right.
So I'm not saying it has to be that way, but maybe they need to do it at schools, one way in, one way out. They need to maybe wand a lot of people, fortify more public resource officers, because I think people want to have a peace of mind. You know, I have two girls that when they go to school, they're in a safe place, right? You don't want to have to think about that. Your children are not in a safe place when they go to school, at least at school. And a lot of people think that should apply in a lot of locations. I mean, if you got a business, I know the case law from the horrific mass shooting that happened, the original mass shooting that was pretty bad in 1984 in San Ysidro at the McDonald's.
McDonald's, yes, yep.
Yeah, James Hubbardy, he ends up going crazy. And that's another, if you look at the parallels between that one, I put in my book, and I think I may be the only person that picked up on this, to be honest with you, that you look at the parallels, what happened in McDonald's in 1984, and you look what happened now with Robb Elementary, same thing, 77 minutes. It took the police to do something. 77 minutes, 21 dead, 21 dead, right? The eerie numbers, the same thing, the same tragic mistakes. The police said all the same thing. Because this guy, I'm not going to give a quick little of him, but you can look him up, James Hubbardy.
Yeah.
Falling Down was kind of loosely based on him. Michael Douglas, you remember that movie, Falling Down?
I didn't see that, but I'm familiar with that case because I think the SWAT team already had surrounded the place and posted up on it. But again, they took no action.
Yeah, no. And before the SWAT team got there, here's another tragedy. Remember back then, there was no phones, so there were people calling from payphones, but the dispatch sent the police to the wrong McDonald's, 3 miles away. So you had people coming in there unaware that he had already taken over, was killing people, and it was horrible what was going on. They had an elderly couple coming in. He shot them both in the head. Boom, boom, kill them. Kids on their bikes coming in to get a sundae on a Sunday, he shoots them. He has a couple with a baby, shoots a baby in the back. It's horrible because nobody knows what's going on, and they're walking into the house of horrors. What's going on? If you look, and I did a little deeper dive on that, 77 minutes. And the reason why the police said, first of all, they said the windows were spidered out because of shooting. They couldn't tell what was going on. Second of all, it's 1984, and they have 38 revolvers. This guy has an arsenal of weapons. He has a Uzi rifle, he has a shotgun, and some other weapons. He's pretty much outgunned the guys, but at the time, they don't have it. So they wait for the SWAT team to show up, and it takes them that long for one sniper to get a position. He gets a clear shot, and he finally takes it. But that's before he kills more. He even goes back in the kitchen area because there's so much time lapsing. He doesn't know what's going on, and he finds out there's people hiding in the back, and they're all Hispanics. Everybody there was Hispanic. At the time, they thought they didn't call it hate crime, but now they're thinking based on he's Anglo. Everybody there was Mexican or Mexican American. He kills. He had a lot of anger issues, mental health issues, and he shoots everybody who was hiding in the kitchen, caring for their lives.
So no clear motive ever emerged. It's just post-shooting.
I think he just had clear anger, mental health issues, and he snapped. Something triggered, and a lot of them, it's something that's going to trigger you. And he never got the treatment. He said allegedly he made a phone call to the mental health department in the area. And again, in 1984, right. And I guess they wrote his name wrong. And back then, they would look it up in the white pages, right? To try to call you back. He never called them back. And I guess he told his wife and his daughters that I said, hey, I gave these guys a chance. They never called him back. He said, where are you going? And they thought he was going to a ranger shooting. He had all his arsenal. And he went in there to do this rampage and kill the people. And I remember that President Reagan at the time, it was a big thing. It was just before the Olympics, right? In 84 in Los Angeles, right? And addressed the nation about it. And I think this is what changed California from being in the middle to going to these extreme laws, because they have some of the most extreme gun restrictions in the country. And this triggered it. This was part of it that led California to banning assault rifle, banning it makes you can't have guns, these gun-free zones.
Right. Now you have a state that's completely out of control with crime.
That's what I'm saying. The gangs flourished, and the people get victimized because you can't protect yourself. Law-abiding people are going to follow the laws. The gangsters and criminals will not, and they will not. So going back to finishing that quick story at Hubbard, what happened to him? 77 minutes causing carnage, right? Killing women and children, shocking, doing these horrible things. One SWAT guy, a sniper, finally gets a beat on him. One shot right in his chest, knocks him out, kills him. Boom, right off his feet. And he lays in his back. That was it. But it took way too long. The same thing that happened here. Now you go to 2022, the same mistakes, same tragedies, same errors are happening again. Way too long, blaming, they're outgunned, they're out. No, you can't be doing that. We need to learn and do better. You have to move quickly. You got to deal with this stuff because it will come. Parkland, you mentioned Parkland, right? About the error. How about the detective or the resource officer that did not go inside? He didn't go inside.
I remember of him standing outside calling it in or something, and
that's all he did. He didn't go inside because he knew he was outgunned. But it doesn't matter. You had students, you had coaches jumping in front, trying to get Cruz's assault rifle, and he's shooting, killing everybody, and you're just outside. So I'm not going to say his name, but it's out there. But he had a lot of issues, and people were upset with him.
Broward sheriff's officer.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
I remember
resource officer. Some people say that sometimes guys who become resource officers aren't the most gun ho, right? Because if you want to be action, you're not going to be a resource officer.
They're more there for deterrence than action. So visual deterrence,
Yeah, unfortunately, they say some of these guys really, they're caught snoozing. Allegedly, I read somewhere a few days after this massacre. Obviously, he was relieved, or he was unsuspended. Something was going on with him. They found another officer. He was snoozing in his vehicle. They caught him snoozing, sleeping.
I believe it. So your solution is along the lines of arm more citizens, allow the resource
teachers.
The teachers and more citizens to be armed. Because I was a criminal. I'm not allowed to carry a gun, anymore. But if you have more armed citizens, there was something here in Indiana where there was a shooting and there was an armed citizen in the mall that took the shooter out.
That's right.
Like
you saw that, right?
Yes, it was right nearby. And then it was the people from the other party were like, "Oh, this is what happens when you have a shootout in the mall." But what if he didn't exist? What if he wasn't in the mall?
It would have massacre.
20 people, right? It's unfortunate it has to end that way, but it has to end.
No, it's the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
I completely agree.
You have to. You have to train. That's why I encourage people to train, be familiar, because nothing's worse. We'll say, okay, let's say you buy a handgun or something in your house, but you don't know how to use it, and you got home videos coming in. That's not the time to try to learn how to use your handgun, right? Because the guy's coming at you, and he's going to take it away from you, or worse. So you better prepare, take the classes, get a concealed weapons permit. Just don't have it at home. Carry it in your car. But be careful because some places are so restrictive that the last thing you want to do is cop a gun charge too. So it's sad, it's crazy. But I personally would never live in a blue state. That's just me. Yeah, and because I believe you need to protect yourself and for other reasons. But in reference to this, I'm very pro Second Amendment.
The Congress people, that are blue, the Democrats, unfortunately, that's the opposite of common sense. I mean, it's kind of, I'm looking for a word, but these people that are voting for these laws to take the guns from everybody, they're allowed to carry a gun. There's staff, there's security. They have gated homes, beautiful homes, all over the country. And okay, there are more risks than average citizens, but at the same time, why not afford the working class nurse or doctor or somebody to have that same, security? Right. It's just it's just crazy because as a criminal, I know we ran guns. I'm not proud of my past, but most of the guns I got were illegal or straw man purchases in South Florida. And so we'd have people buy them and then they'd get a trunk full of guns or whatever and report them stolen. Oh, somebody broke into my house. And then we'd sell the guns.
That's another solution I have also, because I talked about in my autobiography and also Merchants of Death too, the book I wrote, is you need straw men, as you said, people who are buying guns for somebody else, right? To get more time. Because I had cases also where, because obviously I was undercover, but also a case agent. And sometimes I'll be working as a case agent and you get these guys who buy, X amount, let's say you buy the same make and model, right? 6 or 7 of them. Right. Red flags. You get a lot of red flags, boom, 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 boom. And it's obviously they're buying for somebody else. And that person has no criminal history. I've had cases, they get probation.
Right, probation. I've seen that as well.
They need to get, and I wrote that in my book, like you do for armed trafficking, minimum mandatory at least 5 years.
You know,
You get minimum mandatory.
I've noticed in Florida there was some cases back in the 90s where there was, I think, a stripper or two with no criminal history.
Yeah.
They were using drugs. The bad guys said, hey, get all these guns, blah, blah, blah. So they get them to buy, or even college students were buying them. And all those people got probation, but these guns were going to Dominican Republic. They were going
to Caribbean. It's on fire.
They were heading out.
Caribbean. I went to Jamaica to do some training, an international program, and the situation there is horrific in Jamaica. It is bad, all over the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, Haiti's, you know, all the stuff, the assassination attempts going, all the stuff over there is just unbelievable. Yeah. So it show a perfect example how gun control does not work. You look at Mexico, right? Very restrictive, controlling, but the cartels have everything they want and more. That's and right. They control the police, they control the politicians, and if you don't play their games, they do bad things to you. Right. And you will do it, or you will disappear, or they will do. And the cartels are not like the Mexican or not like the Italian mafia, where if they have a problem with you, it's just going to stay with you. No, they're going to punish your family.
That's right.
They're going to kill them first in front of you, and it's not going to be a bullet to their head. These guys, you're going to see all the case after case. They like to send a message. Right. They're going to dismember. They're going to do horrible things, and then they'll do it to you also. And then they'll do anybody else they feel like might be retaliating for your death. This is your other families. We're going to take care of them too, so they don't come after us either.
And in the community, I've seen where they hang the bodies upside down, headless bodies everywhere, to send a message. Don't work with the police.
And they'll put signs on. This is what happens to people that cooperate with the police.
Right.
And let's say you are a good cop. What are you going to do? Are you going to end up being that guy? No, they're going to end up playing the game because they don't want to have their family dismembered or killed or other things happening to them.
Remember the Enrique Camarena case when he was out as a DEA?
DEA,
They got him. And I heard rumors that when they finally got the actual guys that tortured and killed him, there's rumors that they threw him under the fence back into the States to be prosecuted. And he was, I don't know if this is true. You're an agent, you probably know. And he was screaming, "No, I was kidnapped. I wasn't brought back legally." And the judge told him something along the lines of, "Well, we'll deal with that. And, you deal with that with your lawyers. But in the meantime, you're here for this murder. And that's what you're going to be tried for." I remember a case, something like that. I don't remember if it was the Camarena case.
I think just recently they arrested a drug lord that's been a fugitive in reference to that homicide.
Right.
Yeah, he's getting extradited finally. And I had to say, Lopez Obrador, just like Trudeau in Canada, we got two socialists. We got a socialist to the north and a socialist to the south, right? And both of them are very Lopez Obrador both of them are very weak on crime. I hate to say it. They're both very weak, and I talk about it in both my books, the ones about the cartels and about the worst mass shooting, the worst crime syndicates in Canada. Both of them are very weak, and that's why crime is soaring. And from both sides, from Mexico, Canada, Central America, everybody wants to get out. Right? They all want to come to the United States.
Yeah. It seems a lot of these leaders are very charismatic with their people to get the vote, and they're very likable, but in substance and protection and security, there's nothing there, and the countries are falling apart.
Very violent, very bad situation. and they all have the same common: gun control, gun control, gun control. Well, no, that's not the solution. Gun-free zones, no, that empowers, and the street gangs are flourishing. They are getting stronger and bigger and more violent. And Toronto is becoming a very violent city. A very violent city. It's like, look at New York City, unfortunately. I know we talked about New York City. It is getting out of control. If you don't got law and order there, that's a city that you're going to see. People are going to escape from New York. People have left in droves already. It's going to get worse. After COVID and with the violence, it's just people are afraid to go even in the subways. Public transit system is bad. And maybe you can speak more about that.
Back in the 70s, I don't know, I was about 14, 15. Curtis Lewa, who founded the Guardian Angels in the late 70s, I was actually a Guardian Angel back in those days. And we used to patrol the subways with a little beret and this and that. But the crime was so high. And people were getting raped and mugged in the subways. And we were trying to prevent violent crime. Nothing, minor. We overlooked a lot of stuff. And we'd go up in each subway car. And, if everything was cool, you look out and you cap, but if you needed, if the door's open and there was a problem in your car, you'd swirl your little beret around everybody.
Oh, wow.
So, but you couldn't put these uniforms on until everybody met. Well, one time, the guys I was with got into an argument with a turnstile jumper. I said, look, that's not what we're here for. We're here to prevent, senior citizens from getting robbed or hurt. All the robberies on the train.
Jumper.
Right. So he started arguing with the guy, and the guy said, all right, I'll be right back. He came in with a gang of people, stabbed the guy in the chest right beside me. And, they wanted to jump on the rest of us. And they're like, no, these guys didn't do that. He did. I want him. And he ended up getting stabbed. And another one, chased a purse snatcher, and he got killed.
Let me ask you, were you guys armed?
No, we weren't allowed to be armed. No. A lot of the guys, they claimed to be martial arts, and they would mess around. But it was just a matter of showing a little presence and unity on the trains where people were unsafe riding the trains. It was hard.
No, things get worse. I think things have gotten worse. What I'm seeing, and they had a mass shooting a few months ago on the train steps. No one died, but 30-some people were shot. Yeah, right
in Brooklyn, that's it.
Yeah, and that's another thing I noticed in my book about the mass shooters. You have a chance to look at it. Not everybody with mental health issues becomes a mass shooter, right?
Right.
So I talked to some people who are psychologists, read some articles, and I found the trend. What is it? Some things trigger them. Either they were a victim of domestic violence or they committed domestic violence and they snapped. But it's that violence that snaps that leads them to do these horrific actions. Because not everybody does this, obviously. We got a lot of people. And that still has to be addressed because people have depression, anxiety. All those issues have to be addressed with people because we have problems. And then, but these who really are cases, each and every one of them never got the help they really needed. Right. And you see that.
I know when police respond, statistically, when they respond, regular law enforcement, to a domestic violence call, it's one of the most dangerous calls they can go on.
Oh, yeah.
Not only are tempers up, sometimes you have guys and women with zero impulse control. And a lot of them wind up in prison, and you see the same guys snapping on people for no reason. Like there's something wrong. I don't know if it's organic brain damage or, just the way they were raised. Maybe they were abused also.
They were abused, but they need to get therapy. They need to get treatment. Right. Those are things you have to work on. If not, it will only get worse. If you don't treat those things, it's like anything else. It's just going to get worse. So if you don't get the help you need, we're going to keep on. So because you have obviously criminals, because you have people who are about ticking time bombs all around us, you got to protect yourself because when they snap, and they want to commit like Hubbard. And I mean, it's just crazy stuff that happened. Las Vegas, right? Stephen Paddock, he set up like a sniper site in a huge suite. Very bizarre history. It currently is still the worst mass shooting in our country's history.
And they still don't know why he did it, it's my understanding.
I don't think we ever know, other than people. My thing is, why do people do these things? Why did Ramos? Why did Cruz? I just think they get angry there, and they go in this rage and they snap, and it's like it's really bad situation. But one thing does stop it. In most of these cases, when these guys are confronted by law enforcement quickly, they're cowards and they commit suicide. Right? They shoot themselves.
Right.
They have to be confronted. If not, they keep on considering the rampage.
From the prison aspect of it, I was on the offender representative committee. So I worked with the mental health department, the chaplain's office, the medical departments, and I was also a law clerk. So I would help a lot of guys through crises, work with the administration to try to get them help. But 99% of the time when guys, unless they were having a meltdown in prison over something, the only two things they're asking guys who go for some kind of counseling or treatment are, you thinking about escaping? You thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about hurting somebody else? Those three things are the triggers to lock the guy up or whatever, put him in isolation. But I don't see guys getting a lot of significant therapy. They'll get some medication. If there's 20 guys waiting to see a psychologist, half of them are signing up because it's a woman working and they want to go in there and leer
check her out.
Right. It's just not a lot of real treatment going on.
In other words, they're not serious. They're not serious about getting a good treatment. They just want to get some time out there and see something. Right.
Right.
No, that's. I mean, this is just things I'm putting out there. In my experience, what I've seen, if we want to do something, I don't know about you, but we don't want to keep on seeing these schools and being triggered like this. But quick responses, we have to fortify, just like the airports. We may have to copy the same thing for our schools, and we need people there that are going to do the job. You don't want to have a resource officer again that's going to cower or someone that's not going to do the job. I think the teachers, most of them, I say, really love their students. Because you keep on seeing case after case of them shielding the students from the shooters, right? Protecting their little kids, and they also get killed. So you can see most of them do love their students, and they want to do the best for them. So I think the right teachers, right armed, will at least dress because they know to protect themselves and their kids from dying from a crazy killer, from crazed gunmen, right? Because they lose it. They're like a zombie that's going in there, and that's what they are. They're like active zombies.
Right.
They're coming in. So I think that's interesting. I think audience will like that. And it gives solutions and ideas what we need to do as a country, and not just for schools. I mean, I put that at malls, restaurants. They need to do more because these people see these things, and they pick up on it, and they copycat. Like as we speak right now, William, there's someone else that's been triggered that's going to do something really bad, because unfortunately in our country we have all these active shooters that are going to keep on. So as we speak, there's somebody else got triggered by something and is planning to do an active shooter as we speak.
Right. Yep. Okay. If you don't mind, can we move on to the Merchant of Death?
This is William Steele, True Crime King, crime victim advocate, and advocate for the wrongfully convicted. Thank you for joining us in this inaugural podcast with retired Special Agent Ignacio Esteban. Please visit Amazon and check out his books. He's written close to 50 books since his retirement a year ago. They're phenomenal. Everything from his novel about Wimbledon and his life and experiences within Customs Service and the ATF, dealing with other agencies and some of the most dangerous people on the planet. This man is an American hero, and we're honored that he's our inaugural guest on our podcast. Please check out my books on Amazon as well. Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst, and Gillen, Sensational and Impure. We like your support. We appreciate your support. We ask you to subscribe, like, share these channels. I'm on official William Steele all over the place, and I thank you for watching my new reality show, Inmate to Roommate, on A&E Network. Stay tuned for part 2 of this amazing story, behind-the-scenes look at ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives.